this video we're going to take a look at how cells support themselves. So just like in a human body, we have a skeletal system that holds up our body. The inside of a cell has a skeletal system as well. It's not made up of bones and cartilage like what we have, but it's called a cytoskeleton, and it is a support system that helps the cell maintain its shape. The picture here shows you a few different types of cytoskeleton. You can see these right here with the thin little lines. These are microfilaments. We'll talk about those in this video. And we also have these that are hollow tubes called microtubules that run the length of the cell as well. So we're going to look at the microtubules first. These are hollow rods, and their job is to help maintain the shape of the cell, but also to support the cell. And because they are long tubes, they do serve as kind of a track system so that the organelles that are in there can kind of travel along them to other parts of the cell, kind of like a railroad system almost. So we also have centrioles. Centrioles are special though only to animals. And centrioles, you notice, are these tubes right here, and a centriole has multiple tubes that create this almost like star-like appearance. And you can see here this would be a centriole in an actual microscopic picture. But they are for animals only, so you're not going to find this one on your plant picture, not on the plant side. They are made up of microtubules, which is why I put them next in the notes, since we just mentioned that microtubules are these hollow rods. The microtubules make these centrioles, hence these are hollow rods right here. And their job is to help in cell division. So they're only their job is kind of short-lived. As the cell is dividing, then they are needed, but during the rest of the time they're not. So only during cell division would we normally see these. And again, they're only in animals. The flagella is not on the inside of the cell. Okay, so we're kind of moving to the outside of the cell. These are things that stick out of the cell. And this egg-looking item right here would be the cell. You can't see the inside of it, but we would have all these organelles that we've mentioned. And you can see this appendage sticking out. This one has 3. Normally there's only 1. But the flagella is a tail. It's an appendage that sticks out of the cell, and its job is to sweep back and forth, and it helps the cell propel and move around. Now, not all cells have these, but certain ones that need to move around in water do. Sperm cells, for instance, would have a flagella. Things that live in watery substances will normally have some type of flagella or cilia, which we'll talk about next, so that they can move around through the water. And like I mentioned, usually there's only 1 per cell. The picture that you have here is kind of a unique case. And there's some examples, like I mentioned, the sperm algae cells, and certain plants, like aquatic plants, will sometimes have algae on the outside of them as well. Now, cilia is similar in function. They help with movement, but you can see that in this picture there might be hundreds of these little hairs, and they're very short, and they look like little hairs that stick out of the cell. So they are appendages. Again, we're talking about the outside of the cell, not the inside. And they do help with movement, so they can move back and forth, swish back and forth, and that can help the cell move side to side or forward and backward. Whereas in the flagella, you normally have a very small number, like 1 or 3 that our picture had. Cilia, you're looking at very large amounts on the outside of the cell. Some examples, you have cilia on the outside of your cells around your windpipe that help to sweep debris out from your lungs. You also have cilia, the little hairs in your nose, kind of serve as the same job. They don't help your cells move, but they do help sweep debris out from that air so it doesn't get into your lungs. And then we have microfilaments, and the reason that the flagella and the cilia, they were kind of splitting the two here, we're kind of back to the skeleton, so we're back to the inside of the cell, And we talked about the microtubules that are the hollow tubes, and the centrioles are made up of microtubules. We're now going to look at microfilaments. And the filaments are more rod. They're solid, so they're not going to be hollow like the microtubules, tubes, hollow. Microfilaments are not hollow. And you can see them here. It almost looks like a vine that's just wrapped around and just goes everywhere inside of the cell. So it looks really chaotic. But again, that's a support. So it helps to form this structural network inside of the cell so that the cell can maintain its three-dimensional shape. And again, so it can also help hold these organelles that it kind of wraps around and is beside.